Chapter 10 The Uber Shepherd. In the back of a cramped car, Noi condensed herself as much as possible in a failed attempt not to make contact with the older man sitting next to her. He smelled of an odd mixture of strawberry vape smoke with hints of shitty swag weed. She knew the odor well from her early days in the military. The old man's wrinkled tree bark textured ivory complexion twisted into grotesque shapes as he spoke directly into a camera held by his female companion. The woman, a probably once beautiful Filipina, looked to be about the same age, though Noi could never tell an older person's exact age, thanks to all the widely available anti-aging treatments. She held a camera in one hand, while encouraging Treebark Face to keep talking with the other. In their makeshift mobile studio, she was the camerawoman and executive producer. He, the on-air talent. His role was to say things that were supposed to be witty, edgy, and provocative all at once. He wasn't doing a very good job at it. Noi did her best to make herself small, avoiding potential contact with the man or becoming an unwitting guest on their live broadcast. I hate Uber pools, Noi lamented. The car was self-driving, navigating lines of traffic on the crumbling U.S. Highway 50 in short, sometimes jarring thrusts of movement. Must be an old model. The vehicles had come a long way from the early designs at the beginning of the century, but after several unfortunate accidents and general public dislike at the weirdness of seeing a car moving with no driver, the rideshare company agreed to post bodies in the driver's seats to increase the public confidence in the service that we provide. Their message online had stated decades prior. They called them drivers, but everyone knew no actual driving was involved, so they became colloquially known as Uber Shepherds. The current shepherd was reading an actual physical book. From her disadvantaged position, Noi couldn't make out the title. She leaned to the side of the seat to get a better view. All she could see was a thick book and lines of words. A real book. How rare. He was an Asian guy who looked like he could be 15, but was more than likely around her age. I swear, Asians never age. How lucky, she thought. He was even a little more handsome than she originally noticed. With his black-rimmed reading glasses, stylish, loose-fitting button-down shirt, he looked like he would have been more at home down south in the Bay Area than up there in sleepy Sacramento. His appeal was only diminished by his dim-witted decision to use the front passenger seat as his personal office. All manner of document readers, papers, books, writing instruments, and snack containers competed for space in the improvised setup. Somehow, he had even managed to hang two neatly pressed, half-folded spare shirts on wire hangers from the door of the glove compartment. Very resourceful, but sloppy. You never know when you'll need a spare. The young driver's voice startled her. A set of playful eyes met Noi's gaze in the reflection of the vehicle's rearview mirror. The mouth wasn't visible, but his eyes looked happy. Noe let out a single breathy guffaw. I'm impressed that you were able to fit all that up there. It's either this or my dad's place. I actually feel like I have more room here. He laughed, but it was tinted with sadness. You, headed to Folsom? Yeah. Noah's voice became soft and low. Gonna go visit my mom over there. He set his book aside in his office in order to give her his full attention. The old influencers, lost in their own personal illusion, continued their show in the corner of his eye. They whispered to one another about how to edit the video, unaware of him or their stunning ride companion seated right next to them. The shepherd felt a generous helping of pity for the two. It's probably been decades since they influenced anyone other than themselves. Ignoring them, he focused his energy on her. She was by far the prettiest fare he had ridden with in weeks. He made a conscious decision to violate the unwritten policy of don't engage in long, unwanted, and awkward conversations with passengers he had learned in his early days on the job. You know, I heard Folsom is one of the last decent neighborhoods in town. I mean, one of the ones that wasn't messed up after all the flooding and earthquakes in the 30s. He rambled, unsure if he should keep talking. He did. That's at least what my parents told me. They're Bay Area transplants. We left during the height of the Exodus 10 years ago, only to move here. Which of course wasn't much better off because the same shit was happening. People just got fed up with dealing with all the inequality and lack of public services, you know? It really sucked. Noah's mind drifted. He wasn't saying anything profound or interesting she didn't already know. Her lack of interest manifested into an expression of absent-minded consenting, though she was not completely aware of it. A series of short vocal acknowledgments were all she offered him. Sensing disinterest, tiny beads of sweat formed below his hairline. Okay, be more interesting. I'm sorry. I'm running my mouth again. I know I can talk too much. No, it's all right. I was listening. A pang of guilt hit Noe square in the chest. Her mind had wandered again. It was a habit she had been trying to rid herself of for years. She sat up straight as she could in her seat, without making contact with Treebark Face next to her, who was busy using crooked fingers to manipulate the old smartphone camera. The woman had fallen asleep. You're right. Up here isn't much better. But even though it's a little run down, I liked growing up here. The shepherd's eyes bounced in the rearview mirror. She still wants to talk to me. Okay, keep it cool. He told himself to be less wordy. Gotta listen more. This is a real woman. You grew up here? Nice. Which part of town? Del Paso Heights. She made no attempt to conceal the pride in her voice. Cool. I've never been up there, but I've heard it's nice. His answer was breathless. Doubtful, Noah thought. The area typically had a reputation for being one of the poorest and most dangerous parts of the city, going back to at least the beginning of the century. Things only got worse as the years went by. The coronavirus of the early 20s and resulting economic downturn blighted the area right before her birth. Throughout the 30s and 40s, the valley had been hit by a series of biblical natural disasters, always arriving whenever overall conditions seemed to be improving. They could never catch a break before the next fire, flood, or rare earthquake rattled, scorched, or inundated the area. In February 2045, when she was only 15 years old, she recalled torrential rains falling for nearly 2 weeks straight. It was so bad, she had needed to go to her school, Grant Union High School, to get whatever food and supplies she could grab. The media dubbed these calamities the Great Disasters. To them, it was a sensationalist tagline, a pithy 2-word summary of a string of tragedies for eager viewers to digest as they downed their coffee in the morning or prepared for bed at night. But for select residents of the ghetto, each one was a world-shattering event that forever altered the course of their lives. Thanks to her father's blue-collar work ethic and her mother's extracurricular activities, Noe had been one of the lucky ones to survive through it all, but she had not gone completely unscathed. Like a second-degree burn with fractured but healthy skin, the collective trauma from decades of pain had been seared onto her memory. The wound was a grim reminder of ever-present grief. As a result of these catastrophes, her childhood had been marked by longtime residents fleeing the area in droves. First, the Parkers in 3rd grade, followed by the Acevedos in middle school, then the Carvajals when she was 14. That one hurt a lot. Those were just the people she knew personally. The area felt less like home after that, which eventually prompted Noe herself to leave via the military. Guilt from the hard decision still lingered over her shoulder, like a low hovering steel cloud threatening cold rain. She felt it upon seeing the faces of people like Gabrielle and others she knew in the community. The feeling left a dull ache in her heart. It was an affliction she had learned to live with, though she never truly stopped looking for a remedy. In the back of the autocar, the memory of her anguished personal history forced her eyes closed. It was her attempt at prayer. "Are you all right?" the shepherd asked. Her eyes flew open. "Fine." The feeling of tear ducts opening reached her awareness. She willed them to close. They complied. "How much further to Folsom?" Her unexpectedly hard voice surprised her, and made the shepherd's eyes grow wide with surprise or fright. Noe couldn't tell the difference. He consulted his old smartphone. Let's see. My phone says about 20 minutes. They really need to get the middle console fixed so the passengers can see the trip progress. The place in the vehicle where a stylish touchscreen should have been was covered with a black makeshift plastic cover. The handiwork looked shoddy. Clearly, a rush job for someone in need of a quick getaway or someone trying to get out of work. It shuddered, as if it might come loose at any second as the vehicle traversed under-maintained streets. "That your handiwork?" Noe asked, motioning toward the center console. The shepherd laughed. "Nah, I'm horrible when it comes to fixing stuff. Must have been the owner. Guess he's about as good as I am when it comes to vehicle repairs." Noe exhaled a single laugh. "You're probably right about that. I reported it a few weeks ago. I guess someone jacked the computer." "This isn't your car?" Noe asked with genuine curiosity. The shepherd laughed, showing all of his teeth. The Filipino woman stirred in her seat at the sound. The old man continued to struggle with the camera. No way. I could never afford one. Now that I think about it, I don't know anyone who actually owns a car. Way too expensive to find the fancy fuel. And all the old school gas is hard to find at a reasonable price. I guess we can thank our parents' generation for that. Our parents? How old are you? Noah challenged. I'm 29. He continued laughing. I know. I look like I'm 15. I get that all the time. A smile found its way onto her face. Wow, you had me fooled. It's cool. You can make it up to me by giving me a good rating, and maybe requesting to ride with me again? Her eyes darted to his front passenger seat, then down to the device in her lap. She could see the shepherd's name was Van Tran. Only if I can ride in the front seat next time. She giggled openly, and felt her mood lighten for the first time since entering the car. To Van, her laugh was like music. A symphony of pleasant tones from sonata to allegro. Sure, I've got a place I can stash my stuff. I don't do this for everyone, but for you... He consulted his phone. Miss Noelani Acosta, I'll make an exception. I made her laugh. Noe had been so caught up in their conversation, she hadn't noticed the change in scenery outside. The drab gray of the city had been replaced by houses with large lots with imposing security gates, providing exclusivity and privacy to wealthy residents. Large patches of green, trees, grass, and brush populated the spaces in between each house, adding to the character and look of the neighborhood. The place stank of money from unknown shadowy sources. Noe felt her foul mood returning as the car followed winding streets toward her mother's house. Van noted the change in her mood. He allowed a minute of silence to pass between them, unsure of what to say. A minute later, he sighed with relief as the car slowed near Noe's destination. He considered making a comment about the upscale neighborhood, but the look of bitterness on Noe's face as she stared out the window made him keep his comments to himself. Looks like we're here, Van said, less buoyant than before. Even great rides must come to an end. So true. She made a quick series of swipes and low vocal commands on her device, then looked up at the fuzzy mirror. Okay, I left you 5 stars and a comment too. Have a good day. Noah smiled warmly as she opened the door and stepped out. Van was nice and had done a great job getting her out of her head, but she hated dragging out goodbyes, even if it was with someone she had just met. And her mind was already focusing on the next task at hand. Facing her mother. Back in the car, Van watched Noe walk away from the vehicle. She was so stunning in her lemon tank top and fitted white capris that he almost felt a feeling of shame looking at her naturally tanned skin and curvy figure. He gave the command to open his Uber app and scanned the screen to find her comment. Nice guy and driver for someone who lives in his car. Clean your fucking front seat. Van laughed out loud.